Welcome back to Cork and Board, ladies and gentlemen, where we pair good food with good wine. Today, I'm bringing you guys along with an experiment that I'm doing as I expand my knowledge of fortified wine. Now, fortified wine is probably the last major group of wines that I haven't brought onto the show yet. We've covered sparkling, we've covered white, we've covered red, we've covered some basic desserts, and we've even meddled a little bit in the sweetness range, but we're still missing out on fortified wines. Now, fortified wines are, as they suggest, fortified, and the way that that is done is that once fermentation has reached a nice balance and there's a lot of sweetness left, additional grape alcohols are added into the mix in order to both stop the fermentation process and increase the alcohol content, resulting in very sweet, high alcohol wines. It's not uncommon to see 20% alcohol in a fortified wine, whereas a regular wine might top out around 14.5 or 15%. Today we actually have the Croft Reserve Tawny Port. Now this is a bottle I have been working my way through as an introduction to port wine, and I've been quite enjoying it a fair bit. But I've been thinking about it going, okay, I like having chocolate with port, but what kind of chocolate goes best? And so what we're ending up with is this round robin game of chocolates where I've assembled a selection of chocolates from white through to milk, several different kinds of dark chocolate, and we are going to see just how each of those affects the taste. Not dissimilar from our charcuterie plate when we tried that experiment a couple of months ago. So what we're going to do in this episode is I'm going to start with the first impression of the wine, as always, give you that kind of a flavor profile, and then we're going to move through going from the lightest chocolates all the way through to the darkest and even the flavored chocolates as well. And hopefully that'll give a nice understanding, and we will have an idea of what happens when we pair fortified wine with different kinds of chocolate. My prediction for what's going to be happening here is we are going to see the sweeter chocolates get the best flavor profile. So the milk chocolate, the light dark chocolate, and the fruity and the flavored dark chocolates are probably going to take the top here because they're going to have the sweetness profile that will reduce the feeling of sweetness when we consume this wine without overpowering it. Whereas the darker, more bitter chocolates are probably going to accentuate that sweetness and make it feel like it's got a very syrupy flavor. But we have to get started to find out. So let's start with that first impression. You know what? That's not bad on its own. It's very sweet still, and there's a lot of flavor in there, but it's very fruity, but not overly so. It's not got a syrupy taste to it. Given that flavor profile, I'm very much enjoying it on its own, but we have to get started. So let's start off with white chocolate. Now this is probably gonna be the weirdest tasting because white chocolate isn't technically chocolate. It's just milk, fat, and sugar for the most part. But we have to find out to know. And that white chocolate just has that traditional, very sweet and creamy taste to it. There's nothing special about it, but let's see how it stacks up with a port. Wow, ooh. Very interesting. I'm not really getting a lot of the fruity flavor when I have the white chocolate, and the tannins are just skyrocketing. I'm getting like a very bit of a bitter feeling in the back of my mouth near the roof, which is very interesting. I've never really had that experience before. So white chocolate, maybe not the best thing to pair with a port. Moving on to milk chocolate now. It's still very creamy, but it's nowhere near as creamy as the white chocolate was. There's just that little bit more flavor in here from there actually being cocoa in the chocolate. Interesting. So much like with the white chocolate, the milk chocolate is still making those tannins come forward a lot more, but I'm also getting more of the acidity. My mouth is watering more. I want to be eating this, and I'm starting to get this sense that, you know, this is going to be a better dessert pairing. This is going to be more pleasant, but the tannins are still a little bit sharp in there for me. Moving on, we're gonna have the regular dark chocolate. So this is probably around, I'm guessing 50% or so cocoa, but let's see how it tastes. Much more bitter on that chocolate. There's much more I'm going to say a flavor profile, and you can definitely feel the darkness of that chocolate coming through. Not bad at all. This is actually it's a nice balance. The tannins aren't as harsh on this dark chocolate, but at the same time, I'm still getting that sweetness and that reduced sweetness without having to feel it overbearing and become syrupy. Now I'm actually almost out of here, so we need a little bit more wine in the glass. But now we're moving on to the 75% cocoa dark chocolate. And hopefully this will give us a real idea of how well dark chocolate stacks up when mixing with a port. That's pretty dry and bitter. I'm feeling the moisture just getting sucked out of my mouth just having that chocolate. How does it taste with a port though? That's actually better. I think I was wrong. I was initially thinking that the sweeter chocolates were going to perform better. I'm honestly blown away that the 75% cocoa is taking this port by storm, and it's really giving it a well-rounded flavor. I'm getting those fruity notes. I'm not getting overpowered by tannins or acid or alcohol content, but I'm still getting that wonderful full body experience of the port. But that was with 75%. What happens if we take it up to 90%? Wow, that is some really, really dry and fairly bitter chocolate. It's not spit out bitter, but it's still quite bitter and wow. I'm feeling that one even from just a little bit of a square. Now how does that one taste with our port? Now there I am getting a bit more of a syrupy feel, but it's still very well rounded. In there, I would dare say the 75% has so far been the best fit for this port. Yeah, there is a longer finish though with the 90%. I'm getting a lot more of the lingering tastes of both the port and the chocolate on this one. So very interesting in that respect. Moving on, we have two flavored chocolates here. The first one is going to be an orange flavored dark chocolate. Now this one, I'm guessing it's going to be a little bit more like the sweeter chocolates we had at the start, where the sweetness is going to bring out it's going to reduce the sweetness and let the tannins come forward. So let's find out how it tastes. Ooh. I'm going to have to come back and revisit that one again at some point in the future because the fruitiness of the orange in that chocolate is just melding so well with the fruitiness and sweet natures in this tawny port. There's a well-roundedness here. I'm not getting those tannins like I thought I was going to. I'm getting an acidic feel. I'm definitely watering at the mouth on this, but I'm very much enjoying that taste and just relaxing a bit more from it. Very much enjoying that. So, last one that we have is a sea salt dark chocolate. Now, salt typically reduces the feeling of tannins, so my guess here is that we're gonna see, and rather taste, the sweetness coming forward and probably get a very syrupy taste. Well, you can definitely taste the salt in that chocolate, but there's still a sweetness there. Let's see how the port stacks up. There's more of a tinkling sensation and almost a bit of that teeth stripping effect that you get when you have really old port that hasn't quite aged enough yet. Very interesting. It's not particularly pleasant, but it does give me the sense of why they called tawny port mouthwash, because it does have a bit of that feeling of if you take a swig of Listerine to swish about your mouth and then spit out again. Okay, very, very interesting. So, where do we stack up with this for today's episode? Sweet chocolates are definitely not the forte here, and overly bitter chocolates are not either. So you sort of want to stick around, from what I'm tasting here, in about the 75% cocoa range. And if you've got something that's darker and a little fruit flavored, that's probably going to pair very well with this particular port, but every port is different. I have very little experience in there, and this is sort of one of my first forays into this style of wine, and I'm honestly enjoying it thus far, but there's more to come. We will definitely be seeing this bottle back on the show. And that is it for this episode, guys. Thank you so much for coming along. Don't forget to like, comment, and pour over that subscribe button and ring the bell for notifications. We will see you next week, and take care until then.